Again, it is an argument. The idea that you'll be arguing in your thesis is open to debate. We will read your essay and judge whether or not, or rather, readers, someone will read your essay and judge whether or not you have adequately argued your position with details from the story as support. You want to avoid thesis statements that are just plot summary or self-evident, just evident from just reading the story. There's no argument there. In Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart, the guy kills the guy with the evil eye. There's no argument there. It needs to be deeper than that. And you persuade your audience that your idea is valid with those details from the story and discussion from critics. The story, again, is the primary source, and the critics, what other people say about the story, that is the second. Those are the secondary sources. They're commenting upon the story. So the format for the paper, this is just a loose layout of how you would write your essay for this class. The title, I have a specific format of titles for 1302 that I require. This is specific to me and my class. It will need to be centered with no extra spaces. Your title should have 2 parts. The first part is the author's last name and the story title. That's the first part. Short story title should be in quotation marks. Then a colon and the main idea of the paper. And that main idea of the paper, that'll be essentially the theme that you will be analyzing. So you'll want to say something that sets us up as readers for what to expect. The only thing punctuated is the short story title. So if you'll notice at the bottom, there's an example, O'Connor's Late Encounter with the Enemy, which is a short story by Flannery O'Connor, History as Denied Vision. The history as denied vision is what's cluing us into what this essay would be about. The first half of the title is just letting us know which story it's about. Notice that there is no space after the ending quotation marks. There's no space, but there's only 1 space after the colon. You could leave this on 1 line if you wished. You wouldn't have to hit return, but if you do hit return to break up the first and second half of the title, it will need to still be centered. So please bear that in mind. Introduction. In the introduction, in the first paragraph, you will need to give the complete full name of the author who's written the story, the name of the story, again in quotation marks, and that should be very early on. This is not in your thesis statement. It's just it's at the beginning of the story. Yes, you said this stuff in your title, but repeat it, please, in a sentence in your introduction. You need to give some strategies to build to your thesis statement in your introduction. A couple of things that you could do. Give us relevant background, or use an appropriate quotation from the story that relates to the main idea that you're going to be focusing on, the theme you're focusing on. You can draw an analogy, or you could give a brief example from the story. Assume that we're familiar with the story you're writing about. An example I like to give is, for example, if you've seen a movie and you've seen like the latest Star Trek that just came out. You saw the latest Star Trek and you call your friend about it, and you know that your friend has also seen the movie. So you don't have to retell the whole movie to talk about it. You don't have to tell the friend who's already seen the movie the whole movie. You will have to give just a brief synopsis in your essay, or a specific detail, but you can assume, just as your friend's seen the movie, that they're familiar enough for you to have this conversation about that story. So in that discussion with your friend, you would talk specifically perhaps about the theme of the loss of parents that occurs in that movie, because both Captain Kirk and Spock lost family members. You can assume that they're familiar enough with that movie for you to focus in on the discussion of the loss of parents. That would be the theme that would be focused there. Also, use this paragraph to build up to your thesis. These strategies are one of these strategies in the essay. This is what the author, the writer of the piece, is trying to say about the subject of a particular subject. and that's what you're building up to. That's what you're arguing. Please avoid philosophizing about life. In other words, this is not the place for you to open with a sentence such as, money doesn't buy people happiness, or many times people don't understand how important a single word can be to another. Avoid those trite, cliched ways of drawing us into the essay. The more you read critical analysis for these stories, the more you'll notice that sort of approach is not used. You want to consider this paper an academic paper. You're taking part in the academic conversation, so you don't want to use those trite and tired approaches. This is not a book report. It's literary criticism. You are contributing to the conversation about this text.